I think it's incredibly important when we talk about education. And I think it was amazing that Rebecca was out earlier today, and I'm so excited for this afternoon's panel with some SLA parents. Educators are very good, we're very good at talking to each other. Let us always remember that we also have to talk to kids and listen to kids. And one of the things that I have learned, someone said to me, again, I think you all know this, huge proponent of inquiry-based education. Someone said to me, Chris, inquiry's great, but what if we just know more than the kids? And I said, you know, there's one question that no matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter if you're teaching kindergarten or college, you don't know the answer to. And that is, what do you think? And to ask the question of our students and of our parents, what do you think? And to listen deeply with an open mind and an open heart, and to act on what they say, is to me that intersection between the ethic of care and inquiry-based education, and it is the way that we always remain open and learners ourselves. So with that, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce Danielle Duncan, Maya Wright, Danielle Villa, Josh Hendarto, and Jerome McLeod, the graduates of the Science Leadership Academy, and Christian Long to moderate the panel.
All right, more than ever, the key of a moderator is to get out of the way. And I think with this particular group, I'm going to try to back up as quickly as possible. So here's where I would love for you guys to help us get out of your way. I'm a big believer that the world does not need another education conference run by adults, spoken to adults, where adults confirm what adults know, is that when we don't have an equal number of folks who are actively students, we're already off kilter. So this is one of these rare moments where today the voices are your voices, whether alums or active students or just you as human beings and college students, whatnot. So where should we be curious? Like, we have a lot of opinions. We have a lot of assumptions. We have a lot of experience. We have a lot of expertise, maybe. But where are we not curious in the right ways? Or where could we be better in terms of curiosity?
Okay, so I think the biggest thing about education is just passion. And like, when you first enter into school, I mean, it's great to have these core values that you need to learn. But I think the most important thing is passion, and that is the thing that should be driving every single class.
Yeah, definitely look to see what the children are interested in. Like, they're not going to want to learn something they're not interested in. So take the time to figure out, you know, what they're into.
Teachers should definitely be not only teachers, but also friends. You can be your best friends, because I mean, they are your mentors. So, you know, you want to get to know the students a little bit more, and then that way we can see them not only as teachers, but also as friends. So, you know, we get to kind of like hang out.
I definitely think everyone can recognize when you're running a script. So I think if students can see that you're being genuine, then I guess students are more responsive when they see that, you know, they're not just there to be taught, but they're there to learn.
They kind of stole my thunder, but what was I going to say? Sorry. Yeah, you guys took everything I was going to say. That's the problem with 5 people from the Science Leadership Academy, because we're all we have the same views. That's kind of, I feel like, how we work. We are all somehow, that's part of like the admissions process almost, like to be very open-minded somehow. But I think that if my teachers didn't know me, I wouldn't be the person I am today, because they know me. They kind of helped me through, you know, like picking colleges and stuff like that. Like, I'm lost, but I'm less lost because they're like, you know, you like communications, you should do that. You know, these schools are good for that. Like, how else would you know that? There's so many colleges, there's so many places that you could be in. So I think that it's very important when you're coming into a classroom that it's more than just a classroom, it's more than just a room.
And just want to add one more thing, that back to what she was saying about passion, that when you show passion, when you give passion, you you kind of build another passion. So our teacher was passionate about us, so now we're passionate about education. That makes us want to do more than just, studying, being in school. We kind of see the bigger picture of what education is.
Okay. How many of you before today were familiar with SLA or Science Leadership Academy? Had a sense of context? How many of you today sort of grasp the school but feel like they still have a lot more to learn? Okay, fair enough. So I want to throw this question back. You talked about passion, both your passion as well as you building off the passion of the teachers, about them being people you trust or friends. I mean, and we can use different words to get at that. You talked about the problem with being an SLA or having 4 other people is you're all, that's sort of like, it's common language or common thinking. But there was a day when, like many of the people here, you were not familiar with SLA. 3 of you were in the first class. So that first day, it was a lot of theory, a lot of potential, plus you were 9th graders. You came in the second class, you had a little bit of a sense of what they went through, but it was still raw enough or new enough. So take us back to that first day, that first week, that first month, that first quarter, where you didn't speak about your school in those terms, or maybe the relationships with your teachers and coaches in those terms. How did you see the school early on? And then the follow-up question is, why did it change for you?
I remember the orientation summer institute that we had the summer before the school was actually finished. We had the opportunity to go to the Franklin Institute and survey different tourists and visitors to the museum, and we got a chance to talk to different people about why they were there, or I don't remember what we were talking about with them, but I do remember that the school wasn't even finished and we didn't have lab coats, which was my primary concern because no one would take us seriously as students
And
walking
bathrooms.
around without our lab coats. And so I was really excited about just wearing a lab coat in school. That was my only uniform.
Go ahead.
Well, we also didn't have bathrooms in the first few days. The building wasn't finished, but we had plenty of fun because, during the summer orientation, we kind of get to know the teachers. We kind of got to know each other. We were separated into advisories, and then within the advisories, we build smaller communities within a community, and then that kind of helps us ease off. Like, we're kind of comfortable. They kind of it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I was nervous. It was high school, and oh gosh, I'm in high school. So, but it was comfortable being there, even though it was a new building, it was a new type of school, it was new people, new teachers. But during the summer orientation, we kind of build it off and build a stronger relationship between each other and teachers.
My first 2 years of high school weren't that great. I like to label them as like a fluctuation of character. I didn't understand why these people cared about me so much, and I kind of took it as they were being intrusive. And I didn't understand why they wouldn't leave me alone. If I just decided not to do my homework, why was that a problem? But towards the end of my 10th grade year, it just became so evident that it's not even necessarily about me, but about the future of how we're going to build our communities, how are we going to build the futures of tomorrow, which we are. And if these teachers aren't genuine and don't care about it, then, to be quite honest, our whole world is going to go to crap. So when I first came to SLA, it just gave me this, after those 2 years, it gave me this sense of entitlement, that I belonged to this greater community that was aiming towards just building this more innovative and this more innovative world, trying to create a better place.
Yeah. My first, like you said, your first 2 years, they were kind of rough. And what really got me was in 9th grade, we go to the Franklin Institute on Wednesdays. And I was like, whoa, we're leaving school? It's like the middle of the day. And then it kind of continued. We started doing internships in 10th and 11th grade, and it was like they're making the whole world our classroom. For SLA, learning was not just for the classroom. We made partnerships. We communicated with so many different places and learned from so many different people and things. And we learned by doing and going out and doing and not just being in the classroom. And it was so interesting and so sort of bizarre. And I don't know, it was very interesting. SLA was very different. Coming from a traditional Catholic school and going to a very unique SLA school, mind-blowing. Yeah.
I'm part of the first graduating class, but what's different is I started like a week later, so I didn't get that whole like summer institute experience where everyone got to know each other. But I had friends that went there, and that's why I transferred in the first place, because I didn't like the traditional high school I was already at. For the week, I just wasn't feeling it, so I went to SLA. And though it's called Science Leadership Academy, I don't think that matters. I don't think science is as important as people think it is just because of the name, because I'm personally not a fan. And but I always felt very welcome. Like my first history class, I walked in, and even though like I only knew one person from like elementary school, everyone was very welcoming. They were, they wanted to know who I was. They wanted to talk to me. It was a very outgoing environment. Everyone was always comfortable. Like that was a thing. I guess because it was the first week was already passed, but everyone was always comfortable. And we almost got used to no one else being around. We became this small, like, first-class community, which got weird when there was 2 classes. But it was very different, and I like that. I like the small, little community feel.
The clock is letting us know we have about 7 minutes, and there are as many kind of trails to follow off of those 5 responses. And so I want to ask you about 1 or 2 that really struck me, but they're kind of a pattern forming. On one level, there's this talk about the beginning. Even though you were part of the first class, you walked in a week or so in and didn't have the experience that you said really defined, and that was that institute, this very idea that 9th graders would be invited to be part of an institute to really create the culture, to understand the unspoken rules and the spoken rules. And you both talked about the fact that it was an imperfect place, but you were having a great time. And you wanted these lab coats. I mean, what 9th grader wants to wear a lab coat? Like, there's already something funky going on there, right? On the other end of the spectrum, you now have a default setting that says, I'm going to impact the world, right? And that's a really interesting experience over 4 years, that you were part of a startup, which the vast majority of kids and teachers, folks in this room, will never start a school, right? Mm-hmm. We just are wherever we are. So one of the questions I'd love to have the 3 of you respond to is, what from that startup experience could you offer as wisdom to folks who won't start a school, but it's their 9th year in a building, or it's the 4th school they've been at, or they're trying to help the culture of a school change in some honest way, but they're not going to have lab coats, or they're not going to, maybe they'll have an institute, or maybe they'll be part of a beginning of a program. So if the 3 of you could kind of think about that for a second, and then I want to shift it over to you to follow up, and maybe you can play jazz off them, is what does it mean to be a student where you expect to impact the world, not just go to college? What does it mean that over those 4 years, you go from I'm a kid, what class, or why are they bothering me, to my role in this world is to have an impact on society? So you guys get to follow up, or you could even hack the code and start. But what advice can you give to us who aren't going to start a school, but can learn from you? And what does it mean to just expect to change the world?
I'll start. And at the beginning of first quarter, because we do quarterly, I felt comfortable, but it was different. So I didn't know where everything was. So I didn't know who I was individually as a person. And what SLA taught me is that who I am as an individual. And I think everyone can relate to that, just finding the right passion for yourself. I've thought about, even during 9th grade, I was thinking to myself, what do I want to do when I graduate? What do I want to do? Maybe it was too early for me, but that's just me. I want to know, I want to have a clean goal to where I was going. And then SLA helped me develop that passion. And then I don't know. At first, I liked astronomy. I wanted to study astronomy. I wanted to become an astronomer. But then over the years, you know, SLA has taught me who I was as an individual, who I am as a person, where do I belong, and then become from, liking astronomy to now I'm studying criminal justice, which is, just finding yourself, finding who you are as a person, finding who you are as an individual. Where do you belong in the world as an individual?
Let me ask you just a quick follow-up. You have a lot of friends and buddies and folks you kind of know in other schools. Do they talk about high school in that same way? Forget the laptops, the science, and the lab coat.
No.
Do they talk about that as part of their experience?
Definitely not. I tell people about my passion, about what SLA has taught me, and they kind of look at me funny. They're like, really? That's kind of weird. But then, people look at, they look at us funny. They look at us weird, but it's working for me. It works for me, and it works for hundreds of other students in SLA now, And no, people definitely don't talk about high school the same way that I do.
So the two of you, again, what wisdom can you share about being part of that first class, starting a school, that people can think about and play around with wherever they are?
I think that people make high school kind of as something they just have to get through because, you need a diploma to work at McDonald's at this point in the world. So it's just kind of one of those things. But if you don't like the way something is, you can change it. No matter how old your school is, things are always being renovated everywhere in the world. And I don't think it matters that we were the first class or that they were the second class because things are changing and we're not even there anymore. Everything's always changing.
So let me ask you a quick question. Do the faculty and your mentors and the people at school, do you see them changing over the course, or have they figured out how to do it and they're just really good at doing it so they look like they're changing? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Does that question make sense?
I mean,
do you see your own teachers undoing what they've done well or taking risks or?
Yeah, I think they're always changing for the better because they did something with one class, they know how to tweak it to make it more efficient, stuff like that. I think things are always changing. Even when you're good at them, you change them anyway.
Okay, thanks.
We all reflect. I think at the beginning of SLA, we thought we had the luxury of being able to define as a group what it meant to belong to that community. But as we went along, probably halfway into the year, we noticed that some people weren't treating the building as nicely, or they weren't using the classroom environment to foster positive communication. And so you would notice it more in an older place where people tend to do certain things, but you got so many different people from so many different places that maybe didn't have the same idea of what that community would be. So I think that recognizing that people are always going to bring something different or something, they're going to have an idea of what that community is individually. But I think defining that as a group, saying that there are no rules, but there are actually rules to there's a culture here that or there or wherever that kind of helps people to understand what it means to be a member.
Has that been part of the just day-to-day reality for you, that you're stepping into a culture that's bigger than you, but you're also shaping that culture? Has that been part of what high school has been for you?
Oh, exactly, yeah,
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to flip to you guys, and we don't have very much time, but you also know they're not going to play the music on you guys. So, right, because this is the reason we're here, is to hear you all. So, again, you've heard, there's a lot you could work with there, but the question that went to the two of you was about what does it mean to be in an academic or school culture where the expectation is you're going to impact the world in addition to going to college, or in addition to all the other things you're doing?
Well, the way, SLA, they gave us a set of skills. They gave us some really interesting skills that can't be taught. They gave us a sense that we are creative individuals and we function as creative individuals, and they gave us, like you said, I think earlier, an empowerment. And it was sort of scary at first because it's wow, I really do have, you hear on commercials, you have the power to make a difference. And you don't really believe it until someone close to you, like a teacher, says, you can really do this, you can really make this happen. And we, like through SLA, we looked at the world sort of, and it's like, wow, this is different, we can change that. I don't really know if it's working, we can talk and change this. And, darn, I just lost. Oh, I know. Yeah, like, we looked at the world, and it was like, wow, we have the power to impact this even if we don't go to college. We can think creatively and innovative thinking, and, you know, do something with it. Like,
I think this is when I start to speak, because I was planning on this. Okay, so at first it was extremely overwhelming trying to think that, okay, you have all this power in your hands, and it really means nothing. Oh, darn. It really means nothing unless you have a medium in which to put it through. So I think like the common misconception is like, let's just keep encouraging our children or keep encouraging our students, and eventually they'll find out what they really want to do on their own, and just do it. And that's just not the case. For me personally, I found my medium through Rough Cut Productions, which is like our own film production company within our school. We did a couple jobs. Danielle was part of it as well. TEDx Philly, TEDx New York, a couple of other conferences. And before that, the idea of me having any power to change anything, sure, it was idealistic and it was nice, but it wasn't realistic at all, because frankly, if you don't have money, you can't make that much of an impact right away. So by SLA giving me this medium, I was able to like finally come up with some kind of way, like, oh, I know how I'm going to talk to people, because walking around on the streets, people will just think I'm crazy. So when I started working with Rough Cut within our school, they taught me how to edit using Final Cut. They taught me how to do live webcasts and just real life skills in which to like hone in my power or my strength or my passion. And now I'm doing videos for pay. I intern at this place called Webalicious, which does like a whole bunch of live web streaming and stuff like that. And it's just like, finally, there's this point, it's like this point in which passion meets, there's a nice word for this that I'm gonna come up with soon, where passion meets reality, basically, where it's not just about, oh, well, you really enjoy politics, go do that. It's more like, you really enjoy politics? Well, if you just think that you enjoy politics, then that's not really gonna do anything. But if you find out that, you like writing books, you can write a book, you can make a movie. For my senior project, I wrote a screenplay. It didn't necessarily work all the way, but it's something that I now have experience doing, and so therefore my passion actually has some type of meaning.
I hate to do this,
Yeah.
but first and foremost, we want to honor your passion, and secondarily, we have to honor the reality that we have a day rich with passion. So guys, if we can have a round of applause for these five, it'd be terrific. Thank you. Guys, thanks so much.